September 11th meeting of the Norton Planning Board. We have a fairly limited agenda. If I can try to get,
Hello.
Did you get it?
Technology issues today.
just a couple of internal housekeeping items. We've got some draft minutes of our last meeting with a couple of items that we're going to have to fill in. I don't know if people remember who may have made the pertinent motions.
I do remember I made the primary motion on the first item.
I believe
I think it was Frank that
I think it was
seconded.
Frank.
It was
All right, so we
Okay.
Frank,
Frank.
And also note Steve was not here.
Right.
Yeah.
Steve Horn.
Oh,
that's
sorry.
in question.
It's written
not
down.
It's in
Was
there.
not present.
I was
during
here in
said
spirit.
meeting.
Here in
All right,
spirit.
and
Move to adjourn.
that's generally just about, that's everyone and anyone, so you could probably put anyone on
I
there.
think, yeah, I think that was Frank.
I'll take credit for that.
but- All right, so
Yeah.
Frank,
That was Frank.
So unlike
I
you.
think it was
And-
Tim who seconded.
Yeah.
Okay.
is there
Okay.
consensus there?
So I'll just
Yeah, let's
make
say
those.
Frank and Tim.
All right, so
Do
we
need a
have,
motion on that?
I'm sorry?
We need a motion on that? I'm kidding.
so we have amended minutes. Are there any other corrections that need to be made? Hearing none, is there a motion to accept the minutes of August 21st?
Motion to approve?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Okay,
They have to abstain on it.
I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
There is an
Oh, yeah.
abstention. Steve had to abstain because he wasn't here. So it was not
Oh.
unanimous.
Oh,
So just record Steve's abstention.
okay.
And I'll try to get through the housekeeping stuff. We have, and generally, we have copies for everyone, but there are bills to be paid. I'll just read them out. Out of our operating budget, there is a $45 bill for business cards to Allegra Printing. Those are business cards for Paul. And then $270.21 to WB Mason for a number of things, some new sign plates for new members, some, what else have we got? Toner, a date stamp, more toner,
Be adding some more
Lot of
because we're out.
and envelopes, and more toner.
We're using a lot of toner apparently.
A total of $270.21 for WB Mason, for a total bill schedule of $315.21. Are there any questions, or?
And all the toners for planning? Out of
Yes.
Planning board, yeah? So is that just stockpiling or?
We have actually
Bulk
we
Yeah.
have two printers.
No, $315.21. 270 is to WB Mason, and 45 is for the business cards.
Do we have salary or anything else in there?
No,
No, nothing else for this period?
no.
Okay.
Any other questions on the, on that bill schedule, $315.21? If there are no other questions, is there a motion to approve?
We'll move to approve the bills and warrants as presented on September 11.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. And then out of our review account to Horsley and Witten, this is for the Norton Village Center, $3,600.
That should be coming out of the grant, right?
Right.
It is. Yes,
That's why
yes.
I referenced it separately. Let's see. Just for a breakdown, total grant's $50,000. Previously billed $1,400, this is $3,600, so there's still $45,000 in the in the grant fund. Any other questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve that as
Okay.
presented.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. And the last little piece of housekeeping, the town accountant would like verification that the past practice of having the chairman sign for bills and warrants, and in the absence of the chairman, the vice chairman would be authorized to sign for bills. And in the absence of those two, the town manager is authorized to sign payroll and timesheets on behalf of the board. That's been the practice. The town accountant would like that ratified by virtue of a vote and signatures. So is there any discussion on that?
Seems to make sense.
No?
Again, it's been our
Straightforward.
practice since I've been on.
So is this just to reconfirm that?
Right.
Yes.
Right?
Right. Any other discussion? If there is no further discussion, is there a motion to notify the town accountant that that would be the, those would be the authorized signatories for bills?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Seconded?
All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. If you could just sign your spot, and that takes care of the internal stuff. And we're only about 2 minutes off schedule. If you will, we have a continuation of our initial discussion on the preliminary subdivision for Blue Star Business Park, Leonard Street. There is some additional material that has been added to the application, which I believe now makes the application complete. And for the record, my thought is that the clock tolls once the application was completed, so we're good to go.
Okay.
Please.
Good evening, Mark Tibb with Condyne Engineering Group and Jeff O'Neill with Condyne Capital Partners. So as Joe already mentioned, we submitted the abutters list that was needed and the signature pages that went along with that list of owners that was in the packet, as well as the Form D, which is the surveyor's certification. And since the last time we met, we have made quite a bit of headway behind the scenes. I just wanted to go through the items we've been able to accomplish and what we've been working on and where we are at this point. Just some minor things. We've added those dimensions to the plans along the frontage of 123. It shows on the plans now that there's the adequate frontage of 150 feet. The next thing we've done is we submitted what this set of plans here. It's a large set that goes through the entire set. It has layout plans, grading and drainage plans, utility plans. We submitted those to Paul along with drainage calculations, which have been, and maybe Paul can add a little bit to the conversation, is now in the hands of your peer reviewer, and we're beginning that process. Paul can probably go into a little bit more detail on that, but these plans, are 30 scale plans. They're basically the level of site plan review, special permit set of plans. Again, we're still talking about the subdivision on the south side of Leonard Street. So it also does include, it's got demolition plans, erosion control, sediment control. It's got every detail we need to go hand in hand with that subdivision plan and start the peer review process. Let me just get through these and then we'll go to that. I have given Paul as well the location of where when we went through the MEPA process, we did traffic studies, we did greenhouse gas studies, we did basically any level study that MEPA was looking for the project area. I gave Paul the online location of those, so that's accessible as well by the peer review if it's needed further than the MEPA certificate that we already have that has gone back and forth to Mass DOT and, ties this intersection improvements together with the 123 work, with the interchange work. So all that has been made. I've directed Paul where all that information is. The next item, it was the comment at the first meeting about the 80,000 square foot lot requirement when you're in a Zone 2. And what the bylaw reads is, when you're in a Zone 2, you need 80,000 square feet per unit for your parcel. We have not changed those first 3 lots that are undersized yet on that. What we're preparing to do is request a variance, and which will need to go through ZBA and through the process for those 3 lots only. And we do have, in the biggest reason is it says we have the land area available to meet that requirement. We have 240,000 square feet for those first 3 buildings, so 80 times 3. Just in order to keep the flexibility of those lots, we'd like them, we're going to request a variance to allow the normal zoning to take place for those 3 lots. And also, I think one of the intent behind that, when it says per unit, I think it's when you're on septic. It's to limit, when you're in a Zone 2, it's the septic in the Zone 2. So we are doing the mitigation of tying in, just the entire proposal is based on we're tying into the sewer system in the road. So we are going to go forward with a variance request on that. And again, there is adequate, there's more than, even for the 5 buildings times 80,000, we have almost twice the land area that is required under that. So it's just more of a shape and reasoning that we're going to go ahead and try to request and go through that process for a variance. So the subdivision plan still does reflect whatever those lots were. I think 45,000, almost 50,000 square feet per lot. And lastly, we've also we're formally submitted our notice of intent. It's actually, we submitted a notice of intent for each lot, so 6 notices of intent have been submitted. And we will be on their next agenda, I believe, the one in September. So I think if Paul wants to just go a little bit into the Horsley and Witten discussion, maybe that's appropriate. That's
Right.
where we're at this point.
And I just want to add to what Mark was saying. We actually met yesterday with Janet Bernardo with Horsley Witten to go over the scope, the potential scope for this project. We, in addition to the drainage floodplain requirements, we've also asked them to take a very close look at some transportation aspects. Certainly the proximity to the 495, 123 interchange is a big deal. Adding the proposed light on Leonard Street was also, a consideration. We want to make sure that what goes there doesn't create any adverse impacts on transportation. We've asked them to look at walkability of the site as well. And we've submitted everything Mark had given to us to Horsley, so they have it. In addition, we also gave them our complete streets policy for them to look at and see how their proposal fits in with that. So those are really the 2 big issues we're looking at, are the environmental and the transportation aspects. They are to give us their estimate for the project, for doing the peer review next week, and then we'll just have to determine. We'll all have to determine if that's the right way to go. We have considerations if the proposal's above a certain dollar amount, it's possible it may have to go to bid. So we need to look at all of those factors. But obviously, this is it's a complicated project, and we felt like Horsley was able to do this because they are a full engineering and planning firm. They may be subbing out the transportation aspects or some aspects of it, but it was important to get a firm that could, ensure that our policies and rules are met by this, that, issues like public safety and, from flooding, for for vehicular and walking aspects are met as well. So we will know next week. We will get that proposal in, we'll review it to make sure. I should also point out that our conservation agent was at this meeting as well, and the town manager. So, they all had input into what we want to see in the scope.
Is that peer review going to encompass the conservation peer review, or is that still TBD?
That's a TBD, but that was one reason that we wanted to have the conservation agent there, Jennifer Carlino. It's our hope we can do it with one consultant. So Jennifer provided all of her comments at this point. She verbally told them, and then she emailed the comments to them to Horsley. So we have to determine once that scope comes in and see if Jennifer is okay with that.
Okay.
How much, and I don't want to steal your thunder, Orin, but how much discussion with Horsley was there concerning the internal flow of traffic, particularly around those 3 retail lots?
It was pretty significant. That was an issue. I had gone through the notes that we had that from the meeting we had 3 weeks ago. So the internal circulation was another point that we asked them to look at, particularly access to the building that, we were concerned that there's no immediate or direct vehicular access to. So with the site plans that were provided, there's much more detail on it, but that was something we asked them to look at, was also the internal movement of vehicles, but also, again, people on foot, on bike. We also pointed out that this area is part of, the DOT, the MassDOT work where bike lanes and sidewalks are going in the next couple of years. We need to make sure we're tying into that this can support our complete streets policies and become a more vibrant, walkable community.
Have there been any changes to your planned traffic flow? And for my edification, could you just review how traffic is to get from the entry point to all 3 buildings?
So yeah, that's a right turn in off of me if you're going north. Yeah, that's a right turn in. Then from there, you can go left to Building 1. I'm calling Building 1 the one on the corner, or right to Building 2. And then we have not made any significant change to, oh Jesus, sorry. We have not made any significant changes to, allow access between 2 and 3.
Question on that? So it's a 2-lane road heading west on 123. Does that become a 3rd road as it goes into the right into the Unit 1?
Further up here?
No, further down before Leonard Street. So right there, does that become a 3rd road as it bears off right, or is that the right hand?
That is showing the sidewalk, and I believe on that portion, there might be a bike lane. So there's this, you can see sidewalk, and then there's another lane, and then it's 2 lanes, but no, there's not a third, there's not
Not
like
an
a
only
turn
right
off.
turn lane,
Yeah,
Okay.
right? No.
correct.
And is it a stop turn? That's a continuous turn into the lot.
That would be a continuous.
All right, so, okay.
And given the fact that you're obviously picked this location because of proximity to 495, the assumption being a lot of your customer traffic is coming off of 495, going westbound on 123, you turn in on Leonard Street and do what?
So then you turn
From-
left onto Leonard.
From this way in?
Yeah, and then the main entrance is the right.
Okay.
Then you have a choice. You can go to the right to Building 1, or you can go again further down to the right to head into Building 2 and 3.
Okay.
And if you notice, it's a very wide turn lane
Yep.
coming in on that side as well.
Back to the other entry point off of Main Street, eastbound Main Street, right there. Is, when you're coming into there, are there stop signs on that cross flow of traffic? Just so traffic doesn't back up onto 123 if there's multiple vehicles coming in there? Is that the primary, you know,
We could add.
traffic flow?
We could add, I think you're saying, so coming through the parking lot
Yeah,
this
coming
way.
through the parking lot, are there
Yeah.
stop signs on, at that cross intersection, if you will?
That's something we can definitely look
Yeah.
into.
It can be discussed, and I also think it's a matter of getting cars off the roadway as well. Like you're saying, in a backup, if there's a stop sign here and we're waiting for people to cross and go
Yeah,
from
no,
building
I'm
to
looking
building.
at
think
a
he's
stop
thinking
sign
the
on that, on the
cross.
main parking lot drive.
To allow for flow
So
of traffic
either
off
side
the
of
road.
that entry, yeah.
We'll take a look at that.
Yeah, just to alleviate any backup of traffic onto 123.
And is the expectation that truck traffic for Building 4 would enter further down? And
That is correct. Mhm. Truck traffic would come in, use the light, and then enter down this way. And
So
for
use-
deliveries of those 3 retail buildings would be the same, they'd use that same entrance, and their deliveries are all in the rear of the buildings in the back side over here.
But Building 4 wouldn't, it's not on this frame, but the next,
on the next frame.
The next building.
right.
Yeah, they wouldn't be limited to going to that entrance.
There's
They
another
would, they would
entrance
come
further
in,
down, Yeah, I think,
the
right?
first one and then come around, so if they're not on the blind side. They would most likely turn in before the building, go around to the back, so that they can back in, and then, exiting,
Yeah.
When
that
we-
could be directed either way.
When we say in their blind side, they'd be coming in this entrance here, so the truck kitty corners itself, so the driver can look out the window and then back into the slot. If he comes in the other way and comes in this way, he's on the opposite side trying to back into here, so we're trying to guide against that.
Makes sense.
Going back to the entry, going into the retail space off of 123, not the lighted space. You've got a right-hand turn going in.
This one,
Going out, you're limited to a right-hand. So if someone leaving the shopping center at that exit,
correct.
they wanted to get back onto 495, how would they do that?
They have to go through the light and access the light for safety.
Well,
And there's going to be we believe through the Mass Highway construction, there's going to be a raised concrete, not raised, but there's going to be a grouted concrete in the middle of the roadway.
So if I'm leaving the shopping center from that driveway, that's not the lighted driveway,
Correct.
how do I turn around? It's going to be able to make a U-turn at the light?
No,
At this light?
Yeah.
A U-turn, no.
How do I?
U-turns, you'd have to come back into Leonard and then have to pull around and then have to go back out the traffic signal.
So you have to come back,
If you're taking a right turn out of that entrance, it's anticipated you're going east or
You're
north
going-
on 123.
Right.
if you're getting traffic off of 495, that means they're not necessarily residents, they're off of 495.
Mhm.
They're finding your shopping center, they're pulling into that shopping center. My guess is they're gonna exit that same entry. That they're not gonna even know about the other entry on the other side. And I'm questioning as to at what point they're gonna be able to make a turnaround to go back the other way if they wanna go to 495.
And another thing we can look
think that-
into is signage, how
Yeah.
Yeah,
to
495.
495, we'll have to add some clear signage on directions, to get to 495.
In concert with Mass Highway, we're trying to control the traffic with the traffic signals. So this one would be aligned with this one here. So they're timed together appropriately where they have to be.
That's not the
So-
question. The question is how they're getting there.
Yeah.
If they're gonna
But-
turn around somewhere, where are they gonna turn around? And you're saying they're gonna either not go out that entrance, or they're gonna be directed to turn back up Leonard Street, to make a U-turn somewhere to go back out, go back left?
You're asking that driver here, and this is 2 lanes.
Right.
See those 2 lanes?
Yep.
You're asking that driver to cut across and go 2 lanes, and then he's gonna start looking, where am I going? He can't take a left. He can't take a U-turn. Mass Highway's gonna restrict us on put a U-turn sign here. They don't want cars turning around on 123. So that car is either gonna have to go straight up or through take a right where he can go back down Leonard, and he's gonna have to find a way to turn around. Other than that, it's up to us to teach him with traffic signals and signage not to go that way. The normal driver isn't gonna go that way.
Let me just understand, all exits, regardless of where you're going, are going on Leonard Street. Is that
Unless you're
correct?
taking a right out of the retail.
In essence, yes.
Wait a minute. This is what I want to understand. You can't take a right there because it's entrance only, is it not?
No, there's a right
exit,
turn
right turn
only
lane.
exit.
So if you were continuing,
Let's say you were going
Okay.
to Burt
The
Street,
question
you
is,
could
should
come
that
out
be an
there
entrance only?
and go right.
If there's two
Yeah.
lanes and a barrier, I mean, it would be obvious, right?
Yeah, it just has to be appropriately signed. That's a right turn
Yeah.
only
I think if
exit.
there's enough directional signage to.
Yeah.
Yeah, with
guide
signage
folks.
pointing to where to go to get to
It's just like-
495,
Get
it
to
shouldn't be.
495.
just like Stop and Shop in Attleboro.
So, I mean, I think we need a signage plan. You know,
Yeah.
we can
I
definitely
agree with
create
that.
a signage plan
Even-
with
even
directional
Directions,
signage everywhere.
if you let them out that way, even with, there's no way, you're gonna tell them to come back and make a U-turn somewhere. Or they're gonna go straight down 23, and I don't know where down 23 they're making a U-turn.
They'd pull into the
They'd pull
Dunkin'
into the
Donuts.
Dunkin' Donuts,
They'd pull
that's
into the
right,
Dunkin' Donuts
past
and
there.
turn around there.
Just past Leonard Street.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
Well, why wouldn't you force everyone to leave via Leonard Street? It's controlled by lights. There's no conflict with any traffic. I'm not a traffic engineer, but it just,
Our thought is that it allows the, various people to come out, and they can take the immediately right and go right down to Leonard without going back through this way and then going right down to the rest of the buildings.
Or folks wanting to go eastbound on 123 can continue on and
Right.
without having to go through and wait for the traffic light at Leonard Street, coming out of Leonard Street. I don't think that's uncommon, to have a right turn only lane out of a shopping center. Again,
Stop
I
and
think
Shop in Attleboro, does it?
Yeah, I think if it's in a, you can feed that so that, you can build the curb divider, to force that to be a right turn only, have signage right turn only, for folks that, after you go in there once, most people, I think, would get the hang of, the in and out.
all right, but just, again, I'm trying to understand. Building 2, I want to leave.
Where you
I want to
go?
go eastbound.
Eastbound.
How do I get out?
You can go out through the lights, or you can go out where you came in and take a right turn only.
So I'm going to be crossing feeder traffic. It's one thing for building 1, because they're not crossing feeder traffic off of that, I'll call it an on-ramp.
Yeah, if you're coming out of there.
If you're coming out of there, you're going to be.
You go up, there'd be a
you're
stop
gonna-
sign right there, you
Right.
turn left, and then once you're clear, you turn left and into the right turn
And so
only
once
lane.
you're there, you won't,
Yeah.
And then go.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And if you're going
Going the
the
other
other
way,
way, you
you're
come
gonna
out
come
to
out
the light.
the back, to here, to
So
the
some
light,
people are
and then
going-
left.
left there, and others are going straight. And that works for people who know where they are and where they're going, but.
Or if there's signage. Right around there,
People don't always read.
495.
Can we have the consultant review that specifically, because I think that's a
Sure.
problem.
You mentioned the barrier on 123, so it's not a fence barrier, but a gridded.
Correct. We probably believe it's going to be a grooved concrete.
That's not 100% yet.
No, that's supposed to be coordinated with Mass Highways plans.
Okay.
Their jurisdiction, I think, stops.
Does
See that-
traffic light at Leonard Street match up with Dunkin' Donuts, or is that south of Dunkin' Donuts?
This right here is just south of Dunkin' Donuts. This is the exit out of Dunkin' Donuts. This is the town-owned land, so Norton owns that entry point right there.
Is there a road that extends in at that point?
No,
I
we're,
think so, right?
we're aligning as best we can the intersection, so in the future, if they want to do that.
Yeah, but
they
nothing right
can.
now.
Nothing,
So initially, it'd be a three-way stop, right?
correct.
Stoplight? And there'd be nothing at the Dunkin' Donuts.
No, but it could be to his benefit to connect to it. He'd have to work that out with the town, it's on the town land. And then that set of lights can access this four-way intersection. So he could exit that way.
If you're coming out of the Dunkin' Donuts, you're gonna queue up at that light.
Right. Yeah.
If you're coming out of the drive-through, you're gonna queue up at that light.
And right now, that, you can pull out of their left or right out of the Dunkin' Donuts, right?
Well, that
Uh,
Or is
point
that
is
right
no.
only?
It's
Yeah,
only
that's
It's only
right.
right only, okay, so
Yeah,
it
it's
is only
right
right
only.
only.
You
Then
can't go
further
the
up
other
is
way.
where you can come in and out.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
two-way is where you
Further
can enter into the
that way.
Yeah,
complex.
so just a little further up.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
right there is a right only, so.
Right only.
you
Yeah,
know,
so that makes
So it
sense.
functions similarly to the right only that's in this plan now, because you cannot turn left coming out of there. If you were to come through the drive-through, you can't turn left. Or at least you're not supposed to.
Yeah.
So Paul, something to look at would be the traffic volumes and how the circulation would flow within that. Is it a positive to have multiple exit points, even if it is one directional versus
Right.
two directional?
Right.
So Horsley can definitely take a look at
Yeah.
that, based on the traffic study and the volumes they have.
Right.
I have a question. You mentioned that you were going to be seeking a variance to avoid combining those two lots. Does that variance go to the ZBA or to this body?
ZBA, I believe.
So at that point, we can't approve the preliminary plan until you get a variance from the ZBA?
It's probably, I mean, I don't know if you, I don't think you can condition it. You know, subject to the variance, but I think we understand that that has to take place first.
And just a quick one, you filed this Exhibit D, it calls for signature of the registered engineer, but there is none.
Oh, I was focusing on getting my surveyor to sign it, but I'm a registered engineer, so I'll resubmit another one with my signature on it if it's needed.
But is that certificate based upon the plan that's been filed, or the plan that you're gonna be filing?
It's based on anything that's been filed already.
Further questions tonight?
I think
Obviously, there will be further questions. Anyone in the audience?
You said you filed 6 notices of intent, but I thought last week you said there was no 6 and 7? Or you dated a couple buildings?
Skip to like over 5, right there. That area is known as Lot 6, and what we have is a walking path. Where he's outlining right now. There used to be a building 6 there, so we removed that, but we're still proposing that meandering walking path that ties. That's
This
on
is-
building 5, and then right there it goes to building 6, so you'll see the notice of intent. That's the description of the work. It's just that walking path and correct, there's no building there, but just to do the walking path, we have to file a notice of intent for that. And then Lot 7, we did not file anything, but that's also the lot off to the side that we're proposing to land bank or, whatever avenue of, there's nothing proposed on that lot.
Further?
Questions.
Certainly.
I'm Walter Mann, I live on 195 East Main Street. The U sign, no turn won't work, trust me. I have one in front of my house, they do it every day.
Especially at rush hour.
The on-ramp for the state is, I believe, a single lane on-ramp on the state requirements. Coming off of 495. With that amount of volume, that should probably be looked at. Because there's gonna be a backup forever. Accidents or whatever, that's not a dotted yellow line. double line, there's gonna be trucks coming, deliveries coming and stuff. The intersection, a lot of towns have that, they have a big white X, no blocking the intersection signs, they have a lot of them in Boston, but they're fine on there and stuff too, because during rush hour, everybody wants to go home. The drainage, all your drainage is gonna be put into the river, is that how it's all gonna be done? Your parking lot drainage and everything?
It's all gonna go through what's known as BMP's treatment practices. They'll go through catch basins, they'll go through treatment units or bioretention areas first to remove all the pollutants. Then it goes into a infiltration basin. Nothing is gonna directly just lead out a pipe into the river. So everything goes into the infiltration basins after it's treated, back into the ground. There is emergency overflows. It's required on any infiltration basin, emergency overflow. That is ultimately directed toward the nearest wetland. But there's no culverts, there's no direct piping at all to them.
They're gonna be located on that project, do you know by chance, or is it too early?
Like for instance, there's one at the end of building 3 right there, a small one. Go over to the right, Jeff. Yeah, right there. Up. Yeah, that's a bioretention area, and then there's a basin right there. And again, that's next to a BVW. The river is farther down. There's no outlets. Go to the next sheet. There's a major basin behind Building 5. This is in the area, the wide open grass area of what's now the driving range. Of this entire proposal, I don't think one single tree is going to be, a forest line tree is going to be taken down. This is all previously used either golf driving range or landscape yard or whatever. And actually these hatched areas. There's a hatched area on this side. There's a hatched area on this side. Go to the next one. And all along there, that's all areas that's proposed to not be touched anymore. That's historically mowed. So I think the number is, that particular one is almost 3 acres. I think we're up to nearly 8 acres of area that's now grass and mowed. And I mean, there's areas of wet meadow, actual wetlands that are being mowed. It's just historically that'll be allowed to revegetate, that we're not touching. But yeah, like that's a basin there. There's basins out in front of the building as well. But everything, it's designed to meet stormwater management standards. That's one thing that'll be reviewed very thoroughly by the peer reviewer. And it's designed to meet the stormwater regs, even for where we are next to the river, next to the BVW in the Zone 2. There's definitely requirements that we have to meet, treatment levels we have to perform to, and this design criteria it's designed to.
The only reason I ask is that river doesn't flow. I got problems. I've been dealing with Dan Vieira from the state highway. The highway dumps on my property, and once that river goes back out to the 495 by the driving range, it stops. There's virtually no flow. It's clogged. I'm gonna have to see maybe someone from the Conservation Commission. I know the town has some kind of river act or something, but the EPA was looking at it too for mosquito problems and stuff. And because I have a huge river in my yard with nothing on it, state plans, that's like 7 feet wide, 3 feet deep, that fills up all the time with water on my property. And there's a retention tank before you go over the bridge too.
Which side of 495 are you on?
I'm the last house on the right before the bridge,
Okay, coming out of town.
going out of town.
Going out of town, right, yeah.
And maybe we might want to think about changing the speed limit in that zone. Not that it's gonna help, but as soon as they come to that 4-way stop sign, it's a race, and now you're gonna have a lot of stop traffic over the hill. Even though there's gonna be lights there, everyone's gonna try to beat the light. It's 45 now, I believe. And it just, it gets crazy. When I see people come off the highway and take a left right away, and they're going the wrong way over the bridge. You know, they're all looking at GPS today, people don't drive anymore. They just look at the screen, it's just the way it is, you know? So, I don't know. Trying to see, so they're gonna be bringing gas, sewer line down, they're bringing gas line down too, down East Main Street by chance?
No, there's gas existing at the
On that
Dunkin'
side?
Donuts, yeah.
All right.
So we anticipate gas coming from there. We don't know yet if it'll tie in on the other end anywhere, but we have confirmed with Columbia Gas that they have gas
But
at.
is that the only place there's gas? Because there's no gas down Leonard Street either. So would you bring in that into, if you have buildings down?
We will bring it to that, the next driveway.
To your access road out back?
Yeah, yep, where the access, you know, the gas will definitely come to the access road.
And that is all stuff that would have to be done before you were gonna do the road anyway, correct?
Yes,
Yes,
yes, the
correct.
infrastructure will have to be in.
No, are any of those buildings gonna have basements or parking garages underneath them?
No.
No.
Everything's above ground?
Above ground.
Okay. Now, how about, no, I don't know, this might be, I know you guys are just starting, but I know hours of operation, a lot of places don't allow truck deliveries during certain hours because of the noise they make. I work in a lot of places and they have no deliveries to towns like Swansea has one, I know off the top of my head, where they can't deliver certain developments, plazas, certain hours of the day because residents live so close to the noise and stuff. This is, I know it's early in your stage, but I just like, I don't know, the 18 mills lined up down the street in front of my house.
Just so you know, this is kind of an overall
It's an application, yeah.
approval, but each building, because there are over 10,000, each building will be required to get a special permit. And at that point, we'll look at things like, you know, delivery times, hours of operation. But right now, it's, again, just kind of a general concept plan.
Yeah, okay, I'm just trying to help out,
Yep.
so stuff popping further down the line. Been there before. Am I on your butters list by chance?
Didn't
Maybe
see you.
I'm on the other side of the bridge.
I didn't see you, 195.
Across 495.
Yeah, I don't. We can,
Can I put a citizen?
There is a, I think I'm confusing. That's for zoning. You're not required to be listed as the abutters are only 300 feet.
Okay, all right.
Obviously, you've got access to Paul in terms of if there's any information you need, but in terms of a butters list, it's 300 feet. I was thinking of, for zoning changes, you can list yourself as a concerned citizen, and the town's required to notify you, but that's different.
And of course, any of these other future applications that Mark was referring to, we have to publish them, and including being in the Sun Chronicle. We'll have them on the website, so you won't get a direct mailing.
Right.
But there will be notices available.
Okay.
As I recall, Joe, back in 2016, we had somebody in the industrial park, they wanted to have a gas tank installed, and that took a 2-month process of making sure everything from how far it was from wetlands to building it took a long process, because it wasn't just pulling the permit and accepting, it was a whole process to make sure everything was safe and up to code, and everything was going to be a win-win for everybody. So that's just down the line of making it happen.
And there'll be all the town departments, from fire, building inspector, they're all going to be reviewing this in addition to the peer review. So issues of that would be covered by certainly the fire department. And
Right. Could I jump around back to 123? I had a question about the lanes. You gentlemen brought it up. Right now, there is 2 lights being discussed, if not confirmed, for both exits on 495. Is that correct? I know you're meeting with Mass Transit on that.
That's correct.
That is correct.
Both sides.
Yeah, both sides.
Is there any talk
Both
about
sides of the bridge.
expansion of the road? itself? Like adding a lane when traffic?
Out of this time through Mass Highway in the design plans, no,
There's nothing.
no. And then the ramp, you're showing the ramp here as it goes either way, north, the 2 lanes. That's the ramp off.
If I could just make a recommendation as an individual member to see if there's any opportunity, suggestion, making it mandatory if we could actually have on both exits, coming from north and south, as people going right would easily make traffic flow much better, especially going right into the industrial park, as opposed to having those just 2 lanes. I feel it would be mandatory to expand that road. That's it, just in my opinion.
Expand 495
123 or the
I'm saying
ramp?
123, but also the ramps, well, if you're expanding the road, but also having that ramp from both exits 495,
Right.
going right, you're creating pretty much a 3rd lane that will eventually merge into the 2 lanes.
on 123.
So to have like a
Okay.
yield coming off of,
On both sides.
off of 495 to, so that they don't have to stop at the light, but
Right.
it can flow right in.
Because as right now, the traffic goes all the way into 495 as people going north and south into 40. So as is now, without an industrial park, you have 20, 30 cars waiting to take a left-hand turn from both sides without lights. So I know it's not an easy process. It's a big investment, but I think it's really needed to make this a success.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I agree with
think they potentially, Paul, you might know this better than I do, but they already put it out for bid, which means they're at 100% design, which means if they already put it out to bid, the chances of us changing the plan set are probably,
Mute.
yeah,
Okay.
could be tough, Frank. Not that we shouldn't request that or have them look at it, but it could, if it requires right-of-way acquisition, it's a whole separate set of issues when it comes to transportation planning.
Okay.
And I might be wrong, but I do believe they had already put it out to bid. So if they have done that and the bid documents have come in, unless it's out to bid and we can make an amendment, but to it, Paul, but
Yeah.
I think that
I'll
would
look-
be tough.
I'll look
But
into
worth
If
the
there's a
shot to look
possibility,
at
worth
it.
a shot.
Sure.
Yeah,
So-
yeah.
Sure.
I have a feeling if you wanted to add a second lane off the on-ramp, it would end up, the choice would be like it is coming off into Xfinity, where you have the light there, and that's not helpful either.
No.
So,
Yeah.
I think that's kind of where you end up in that discussion, probably.
And
I think, Frank, we're also limited with all the environmental restrictions that are here. All the wetlands and everything else that's off the edge. And the terrain, as you come up, you notice there's a huge drop-off that goes down
Right.
to these lowlands where all that wetlands are.
in our initial ENF filing, which went to MassDOT, MassDOT has looked at it 3 different times now, ENF, DEIR, and FEIR, and they've commented. So, I think when we go through the peer review process and we look at, I believe the future build-out of the area is incorporated into the numbers and the, design of the light, but we can definitely go back through that data.
Paul, another thing I would have the peer reviewer take a look at is in that kind of in and out, right turn only, the sight distance from that, what could potentially be the 2 stop signs. There's not a lot of stacking there, it doesn't look like on the initial plan, so I really want them to take a look at the sight distance coming in there. Because you could
From
very
the right
easily-
turn?
Yeah, you could
Okay.
very easily get stacking up onto 123. It's such a short distance there, and I know we're kind of taking a look at kind of the frontage off 123, but something to potentially think about is flipping the buildings to be actually closer to the roadway with the parking behind it. That way you'll get a longer queue line into the development.
Right.
So just kind of food for thought.
Yeah, but that wouldn't work with the deliveries.
Well, the trucks wouldn't be coming in here on this one.
Right, but if the parking's behind the buildings, that's where deliveries are happening.
Well, yeah, you'd have to
So
look
it'd
at
be-
that, but this stacking is gonna be maybe 2 or 3 cars deep, I think, maybe.
In retail, your deliveries are not that frequently during the day, they're usually in the morning or the after hours, so that shouldn't be a problem. But I like the idea of putting the parking behind it. It also gets the retail closer to the street, which is an approach that we want to get people to see these things.
Right.
And takes that parking situation off of the main entrance, that entrance, which would be helpful.
But then that's the back of the building would be up against 123 in that approach, right?
No,
No, I think it would still be the front, you could still design it so that the front of the building is facing
Kind of like Dunkin'
23.
Donuts on 123.
Parking is behind.
Or some version of it. Just the stacking that's gonna happen here, if this is the opening, is like that's gonna be tight, I think, depending on what the flow is coming in. That's like maybe 2, 3 cars.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the, depending on what these businesses are, and will determine the volume
Yep.
and
Oh, yeah.
frequency of traffic in and out.
Well, if
Yeah.
it's kind of like, let's say, a mini Mansfield crossing, I mean, think about the number of cars that are coming in out that complex. If it's gonna be that kind of one-floor retail, like, look and feel, let's say, of the front of, Mansfield Common, at Mansfield Crossings, I mean, that's,
I believe
That could
that's
be a lot of
what you've
traffic.
referenced previously. is
And
kind
those,
of
and those are of similar design where there's two rows of parking out
yeah,
front.
yeah, in the front.
And the deliveries are at the rear of the building.
I don't know, Paul, just something to look at. I'm just worried about the stacking.
Right. Right.
Some of those changes are going to have to be in the state guidelines for the highway department, but the Mass DOT, that's the one, their regulations, that's part of their jurisdiction, that part of the road, correct?
But
Now, your town, like, the road widths, the curves of the road and everything else, they're all a little different when it comes to state highway. So that's just a thought,
Yeah.
thought. You might think, oh, we're just gonna go right in, anyway, you're gonna go like this, under their guidelines, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 123 being a
Town
state
road, the
highway.
Town road and the state road
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
different guidelines.
Yep, different jurisdictions.
Curves
Yep.
and
Right.
all that other happy stuff.
Question, just to go back on the scope of the review, are we asking them to review the preliminary plan? Or are we asking this review to go beyond in terms of looking at the guidelines under section 5 of the things? That's just, I'm not sure.
To go beyond, they have the preliminary, but Mark also provided a draft site plan, so they have much more the detail plans to work with now.
the expectation being that Horsley Witten would be the peer reviewer for the whole process.
Right, correct. So it is a more detailed than, the preliminary wouldn't have given them enough information to give you what you were asking for. And at the last meeting, you all were pretty clear. You wanted many more details to be inputted into the whole peer review process, so.
I'm just not clear whether the MEPA process incorporates all of our sign review that's in section 5 of our subdivision requirements. Those design, I'm not sure that all of that design review is covered under what the MEPA has reviewed. So I just didn't know how we're going to limit the scope and making sure that we cover everything that's required under section 5. If it's not already covered, to our satisfaction.
Okay.
The other question I had is, have we or has the applicant submitted to the Board of Health yet?
Didn't you, I thought you filed jointly.
Yes, they signed off on the plan, right? On the application, that they received the file, yeah, we sent them a copy. Right there on the subdivision plan.
Right.
They were supposed to get you a copy. They have it.
Yep, it's stamped.
Right.
We have a-
Right, the stamp at the top right.
Right, but they'll also be, of course, in all of the applications that come in, Board of Health will have to look at this and provide us with feedback on.
Well, I'm just going to focus on, we have some periods of time to respond to the preliminary plan. So I just want to.
Right.
I'm not sure how much longer we're going to give that review in terms of the preliminary plan. The Board of Health has to respond to.
Right. Right, so they have a certain period of time now that essentially the clock has started ticking, so.
Do the wetlands have to be surveyed?
Yeah.
For this plan, or does that go through Jennifer and the Conservation Commission?
We've gone through the ANRAD process, which is where we surveyed the entire parcel, all the wetlands. And we have an ORAD, which defines the wetlands approved by conservation. We do have that step in hand.
Any further questions for tonight?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
a couple of questions and then just a comment.
Could you just identify yourself, please?
I'm sorry?
Could you just identify yourself?
Frank Betancourt, 10 Janet Street. Do we have access to those site plans publicly? Are they at a website? Is there somewhere we can get, we can see each individual site plan as it joins the project? Individual
we-
townspeople, we can get access to it?
Well, the site plans are just an initial draft. They weren't an official, they were provided to us just so we could give them to the applicant, but,
We were able to get the NRED plans, so I'm.
Right,
We can get the site plans.
well, again, the site plans, what we do have officially is the preliminary subdivision. We do have them electronically. We haven't put them up, but I can certainly check and see how we can get them. They are available, they are physically at the office right there, too.
Is Tom willing to do that? Put them on your website where you put the NREDs?
Yeah, we can add them to the MIPA site maybe or something like that. Yeah, they're nothing, it's this, that exact plan is the official set we filed. The plans you're looking up here that say sheet up to 43 is the plan for the peer reviewer. Literally just some paperwork, and it will be filed as part of the special permit site plan review packages upcoming. But, yeah, there's nothing, especially the ones that are formally submitted in the subdivision plans.
I guess my comment is, it's a big project. And
Right.
it's being parceled in pieces, so you don't have a big picture of what this all looks like. I'm on the last section, Leonard Street North. The very last section where a good deal of, the gentleman mentioned that there wasn't gonna be a lot of tree felling. Well, that's all gonna happen on that end. So you guys are seeing this in pieces, but the abutters and the folks on the other end are at the end of the project. So whatever decisions are being made now, always the scope of that has to be constantly, what about the folks on the other end? What's going to come to them and when is it going to come? So a lot of the questions you're asking now, I'm seeing DOT, flooding, conservation, traffic. I don't hear abutters. I don't hear abutters. I hear an abutter list, that's great. But at this point, I don't think you're getting a lot of feedback from abutters because there's probably not a whole lot at this point. But when you start moving to the back, when I'm hearing we're gonna go for variances, who's gonna enforce compliance? That's what we're concerned about. We wanna make sure that boards, I've had this discussion with the selectmen, I've gone to their meetings, we expect, we think this is a good thing for the town. It's in my backyard and I'm dealing with it. But I expect that the boards will enforce, the laws that we have. So I want to make sure that right from the jump street, that, we're all on the same page with making sure that we don't lose track of that. Because it's very important. The folks on that end of town have taken a big hunk of this onto themselves. This is a major impact. So we need to make sure that the folks that are enforcing these regulations are making sure that it happens. So I want to be able to see these site plans as they drop, if they change, because they've changed already. The building layout when we first saw it does not look like it does now for that back section. That back section changed. Condyne will tell you that that was based on meetings with the abutters. Well, again, those abutter meetings were broken down into small groups. The whole group of abutters were not allowed to speak as a group. It was broken down, and each individual group gave their feelings. So some of that was agenda-driven, and that's what changed that plan. In some ways, it became a worse plan than it was. So we have to make sure that we're not looking at this in just pieces, but we're looking at it as a major, big project that we can all keep our eyes on. Because to parcel it out in pieces makes it easier to maneuver. And that's fine, but what about the folks at the end? That's the comment that I want to bring to this board. I went to many conservation meetings. I didn't hear a butter there. I mean, you folks were there. You don't hear it. You don't hear that word come up. Okay, so I'm looking for these boards to make sure that you hold our interests. This is good for the town. I'm not saying it's not. Make sure the abutters' interests are being met, because they're taking the brunt of this. This is an industrial park. These aren't homes. Okay, so I just want to make sure that I get access to these site plans as they drop so that we can see what's going on.
Just as a simple rule, if we have them, they're available to you. It's a
Okay.
public record.
Yeah.
So
So I can come in and see.
if we, I can't offer you something we don't have, but if we have them, if we physically have them, then you have a right to see them.
Right, so we have them. I should also point out, I'm fairly new still, so I want to be able to put this information up online. I just not sure if our technology is supportive of it, but that's
might
one
not
of the
be, yeah.
things. I'm sorry?
It might not be.
It might not be, but we have physical copies. And again, we're right up on the second floor, so we want people, we encourage it.
Yeah, we just want to keep track of.
Right.
Of this process as it moves through, because you folks are making decisions on these upfront projects, and it's gonna become, and I hate to say it, but it's become rote by the time it gets to the back sections, and that's a different set of concerns back there.
There's people living back
There's
there.
people
Right.
living back there. We're not talking about 123. We're talking about Janet
Right.
Street, Carlton, we're talking about residential streets.
Right, and as we're talking about this, what we call the peer review, which again is getting a planning and engineering firm to look at it, we're looking at what's on the site, but we're also asking them to really look at what happens off-site. So off-site flooding, we don't want to see people downstream getting flooded because of a project, any project, this or others. Traffic as well, we don't want to see traffic backing.
Earlier about the deliveries, that's my house right there, on that access road that's gonna go with the building in the middle of the woods. I live right in front of that, and the trucks will be
Yep.
going right by out back, you know what I mean? If
Right.
there's not a time.
So our review
That's
do-
down the road, but
Yeah.
that's just to his point, you know?
But our review goes outside of the property, just the subject property, but we are looking at the area as well.
So I meant to ask, the peer review, is that for all the phases or just this first phase?
Ultimately, there will be peer review of everything.
Of
What
each
we're dealing,
piece of this?
what we're dealing with now is just this section, but, we're all aware that there's more, and again, there's no secrets here, there's more to this project than what we've talked about tonight.
Right.
And there will be peer review of the entire, as each phase is introduced, there'll be peer review of all of it. And again, this is a preliminary subdivision. Again, all this is doing is breaking it into lots. It's not approving a building, it's not approving parking, it's not approving anything. Each one of those buildings will be subject to its own site plan and special permit. So this is kind of the opening salvo.
Okay. Well, in fairness to Condon, I think they've been very transparent. I don't think there's been anything that's not been open. They've been willing to talk to folks, which is great. I just want to make sure that our representative boards will look out for our interests, because it is a multi-million-dollar corporation. They're trying to make money, and that's fine, but there's people living back there.
Yep.
I don't want to speak for the entire board, but in my time on the board, I don't think any abutter has ever kind of taken a back seat, just so you're aware. And I don't think that's ever happened, so, as far as my experience here.
I just wanted to say it up front. I know we just started, so I just wanted to get that out on the table so that you guys keep that in your back of your minds, that's, this, by the time you get to us, and I don't even know when that's gonna be, it might be a year or two. I don't know. But, I personally will be attending these meetings, but I just wanted to say that up front.
I'd urge you to say it up front, in the middle, and at the end, so.
Does the town have bylaws on building hours for constructing this project?
No, here again, we typically, as part of a site plan review or special permit, put hours of construction, depending on the nature of the business. We have put hours of operation, hours of delivery, but again, that's on the horizon.
I just wanted
Yep.
my own knowledge,
Yep.
that's all, thanks.
Any other questions, comments? Well, I don't know if you want to continue to a specific date or wait to hear back from Horsley and Witten to see what their timeline is. Thoughts? Again, just a,
The next date, and if we just have to continue, or, whatever. I don't know if you guys even have a next date, but
25th is the next
25th is
meeting. 2
the
weeks from
next
tonight, isn't it?
meeting. Again, I'd like that to be flavored with some feedback from Horsley and Witten, because otherwise we're just kind of plowing old ground.
Well, they're supposed to get us the
The pricing next week.
Right.
I don't know that they're
It
going to.
doesn't leave a whole lot of room to actually
Right.
review.
Well, they won't be, correct, we won't have the review at that point.
So
Paul, did they give you, with the cost, will they give you a schedule?
Yes.
Okay, so that would help maybe drive when we have comments from them?
Well, we can certainly, certainly email out, in advance what that schedule
Well,
is.
Budget?
I'm sorry?
We'll have to approve the budget.
We do. Right, we would have,
Will they work before we approve a budget? The start of the work? Will they-
we wouldn't ask that of them.
Okay, so then,
They're frankly, the ones that have to approve the budget is CONDOT.
Right.
We're the ones paying for it. I'd like to approve
If
the
we
budget.
just- If we
not-
send in a check for the budget amount, I hope they can start.
I mean, that's typically.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
A behind the scenes doesn't sound right. There is a meeting of the minds as to what it's going to cost and the assumption that the applicant is going to pay for it. Whether that's $10 or 10 million, we typically don't deal with. So that's kind of an internal thing. We just want to make sure that the scope of work that we need done is done, and that there's ultimately a meeting of the minds as to how it's going to be paid for.
But it is paid by the applicant. The town doesn't bear the cost of peer review.
I guess our preference is to put us on the next date, and if we don't have the information, we continue
Okay.
and move on to the next one.
It
So
does make
rather
sense,
keep
only
the
because
slot open, you know?
there is a clock tolling, even though it was reset. All right, so we'll put you on for the 25th.
Correct.
We can get back to you with a specific time.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else for the board tonight?
I think Paul put the flyer at the back of the packets,
Yep.
but I had mentioned it at our last meeting, that there's an open house on the 27th.
I think we're done with,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
close the public hearing portion.
Well, this actually isn't a public
I
hearing.
guess it's, well, yeah, it's still listed for
Oh.
the agenda, but,
There, so,
We're just continuing until the
Continuing.
25th.
there. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Tim.
so this is also with Horsley Witten, but funded through the grant, which we approved part of today, doing a study of the village center, which is essentially the intersection of 140 and 123 and the village green and all of the backups it entails. So this is the second open house. It is at Wheaton, so if we can get some Wheaton student participation as well. The last one was interesting, and we'll see kind of some thoughts on what might make sense in terms of the future look of the village center, in theory. So, it's open to anybody. If you were at the last open house, you probably got an email today, I think. And if you, I'm sure if you email Paul or myself, if you want to be on that email list, I'm sure we can get you added, so.
I got it, Tim.
I think I got it, but
Yeah.
it goes into another folder, so, yeah.
Well, we'd love to see people there. The exercises are looking really, really good, and it's really important for us to hear from the public. So certainly want to invite you all. We have flyers up here if you all want to attend. This will be, an important next step. We have one more open house, but this is the second one. So this will tell us, did we, based on what the public told us in the first round, are we going in the right direction? And we have some interesting options out there.
Nice teaser.
Just one other thing that's not on the agenda, and so I'm not going to discuss it at any great length, but the annual town meeting, frankly, surprised me a little bit from a planning board perspective, and that is to say the marijuana zoning article that we had. I received a call from someone subsequent to town meeting that wanted to take me up on the offer of creating a petition article, and because, as you saw, the warrant closed the 23rd of August, there probably wasn't enough time, but there were some points made that I think merit some some discussion by the board, most notably that if we're going to have a retail endeavor, why would we zone it to an industrial zone only? Again, I was surprised by the amount of support that retail marijuana seemed to elicit. As you remember, the vote was pretty close. The vote was very close here. I should have been a little more attentive. But my point in raising it, I think it bears some discussion as to whether we want to revisit that and whether we want to expand it. Because otherwise, I'd like to say to this person, the board isn't going to do anything with it, and I'll help you, like I would with anyone, help you write an article. It doesn't mean I agree with it, but I can tell you how the mechanics work. But as I said, I thought my fear was that we would get pushback from people who didn't want it zoned anywhere. And obviously, as we talked, if that were to happen, then it's zoned everywhere. So just a thought, I'll ask Paul to put it on the agenda at some future meeting, and we can discuss whether people want to, move that along in any way or not. But I should know better after all these years of dealing with town meetings that never be surprised. In any event, that was it for me. Anything else? Is there a motion to adjourn if there's nothing else?
So moved.
All in favor?
Steve and Frank.
Aye.
Aye. Steve and Stu. Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you.
Good night.